Welcome now our political panel of Shavar Jeffries, president of Democrats for Education Reform and a partner at Lowenstein Sandler. And coming to us from Washington today, Genevieve Wood. She's senior advisor and spokesperson for the Heritage Foundation. So welcome to both of you. Shavar, I'll start with you. Bernie Sanders is running as a Democrat, even though he's been an independent. Is he picking an issue that's of great importance to Democrats across the country?
Well, the education issue absolutely is of great importance to Democrats throughout the country. But unfortunately, Senator Sanders' approach is focused on money, but not also focused on fairness and actually improving the quality of education. So one, his debt cancellation policy, the concept is good to deal with those who are overburdened by debt, but it's regressive. He should focus on low-income families and working families, frankly, not the wealthy, but he shouldn't just stop at money. We need to look at making our higher education system more fair. We have admission, early action policies, early decision policies, and legacy admission policies where too many colleges aren't accepting their fair share of working families, and then we need to make it better. We have many colleges that are basically dropout factories with graduation rates below 30%, 40%, and that's simply unacceptable.
So, Genevieve, what about it? From your point of view, what Shavar says is, look at paying off everybody's loans, that treats everybody the same. The fact is we should really target the people who really don't have the same sort of economic opportunity, and we should really benefit them. We don't have to benefit everybody. What do you say?
Well, I think Shavar and I might have some agreement here. Look, I think Bernie's focused on the wrong thing. We ought to be looking at how we get the cost of college education and tuition down for everybody, not just finding ways to keep paying off these extremely high tuition rates, which, as anybody who's really studied this issue knows, we saw the cost of college tuition start trekking up as the more and the more the federal government got into the student loan business. And as of today, the federal government pays for about 90% of the student loans that are out there. Well, universities look at this as a cash cow. They're not worried about giving students necessarily a quality education. They're not worried about the loan that they're passing on to these folks and these debts, because they know Uncle Sam's footing the bill. So what we need to be doing is getting the government out of that side of it and making these universities actually produce a quality education, actually compete in the marketplace for these students, which will bring prices down and I think make tuition much more affordable for every level of American across the board.
Sure, this is about higher education. What about making sure the kids are ready for college once they get there, whether they can pay for it or not? What are we doing about K through 12 in this country? You are familiar with that problem from Newark. You've had a lot of experience there. What do we need to do about that?
Well, we think we need to do many of the things that, frankly, President Obama did, which was in greater investments in public education, but marrying those investments with the reforms that we know work for our young people. So higher standards, more rigorous standards, better professional development for educators, holding schools accountable to actually produce in a way that actually serves our young people well, reimagining teacher preparation. Many of the legacy programs of teacher prep have shown themselves not to give the teacher what they really need to drive instruction in the classroom. So we need a broader reform than just money.
Are the teachers' unions on board with that, with you, Shavar? Because that doesn't sound like it.
They're on board with us with money, and we disagree with some of our Republican colleagues who don't want to make the financial investment, but then we differ from them because we need money plus reform and new ideas.
So, Genevieve, what about it? I mean, it's a classic sort of thing. Give us the money and we'll take care of it, or let us hold you accountable without giving the money. What do we need to do?
Well, look, we already give a lot of money to education. I'm here in the District of Columbia where we spend over $25,000 per student in the public education system here. And D.C. produces some of the worst outcomes anywhere in the country. So money, I would have to argue, is not the #1 answer here. Again, schools do need to be held accountable. But one way you bring in accountability is you bring in competition. And you make sure that these schools and these teachers know if you're not getting the job done, if children are graduating and they can't read, they can't write, and they certainly can't do it at the levels they should be doing it, then you're going to be held accountable because those dollars for those students have the ability to go somewhere else. And right now, unfortunately, in many places, the dollars don't go anywhere else. They keep funding the same schools, the same systems that have failed the kids.
Shavar, I think I heard something about private charter in there. Maybe not using the word, but again, you've had experience in Newark. But what are we going to hear in the Democratic debates that we have coming up just this week? Is anybody going to take an enlightened approach to education up on that debate stage?
I think so. I mean, you have people like Senator Booker, who's really been a model in terms of marrying increased investments with reform. His Strive Act would really work to reimagine the way in which we compensate our teachers, not only putting more money in, as Sanders would, but then targeting to those teachers in those schools that need it the most. So in his Strive bill, for high poverty schools, there'd be capacity to pay teachers more and to have differentials to actually get teachers in the STEM subjects where there are many shortages. So we need the money that many Democrats are for, but then we got to be smart about how we allocate the money so we actually produce a better result. And frankly, D.C., we have seen graduation rates go up, proficiency rates go up in the District of Columbia over the last 10 years with this sort of policy.
But in fairness, Genevieve, the improvement that I believe we have seen in District of Columbia, how much of that is because of charter schools? Because haven't they really moved over and have a lot more charter schools?
There are a lot more charter schools in D.C., but there's also the D.C. Opportunity Scholarship Fund, which, of course, President Obama actually tried to defund, which gave parents the opportunity to get money to then pick the school that their child would go to and take those dollars with them. And you saw great success in those areas. So we ought to have more of that. I'll be surprised, however, if we see much of that in the Democratic debate, talk about choices in education, because unfortunately, the Democratic Party and most of the candidates that are involved there, they have become so attached to the teachers' unions who, frankly, don't want the competition. Yeah, they want more money, but they don't want competition. They don't want private market coming in. So I'll be surprised if you see very many Democratic candidates talking about choice.
Well, 94% of young people, 94% of young people in the United States go to traditional public education. So I would expect the Democratic candidates to spend a majority of their time focused on where most of the babies are. But we do have many Democrats, like Senator Booker, who walk in the legacy of President Obama, who also think public school choice, where there's public accountability, where there's obligation to serve all children. Some private voucher programs allow providers not to accept students if the child may be LGBTQ. Some people believe there shouldn't be robust accountability to make sure those schools are actually working for young people. That type of choice doesn't work for Democrats, but public choice, where there's public accountability, civil rights guarantees, as we see in the public charter school space, we see many Democrats who support that.
And I'll mainly be interested in how much time is spent on education in those debates, period. I mean, I hope there's a lot. Okay, many thanks to Shavar Jeffries. He's president of Democrats for Education Reform, and Genevieve Wood of the Heritage Foundation. Great to have you both with us today. Coming up, President Trump